Hi, I'm Jeannie Balloon. Welcome to Jeannie on the Beat, Talking with the Talent, Ann Arbor's newest talk variety show, where I'll bring you up close and personal with fabulous writers, performers, and other fascinating folks. My guests tonight are transpersonal psychologist, teacher, and software designer Mara Evans, and Audrey Wong Chung, CEO and founder of international businesses that manufacture and sell fashion and luxury goods to the mass market. And she's also founder of the Beliza Foundation. Mara has done significant research and writing on the concept of spirituality in the workplace. And Audrey is successfully implementing such concepts within her businesses. Welcome, ladies. It's great to have you here.
Hi, Jeannie. Thanks for having us.
Oh, you're welcome. So Mara, I'd like to start with you and see if you can give us some conceptual background about, based on your research, about what are some of the criteria for practicing spirituality in the workplace, and what does that even mean these days, that term?
Yeah, it's not probably what most people would think when they think about spirituality in the workplace, but really what it is it's about creating an environment in which people can truly grow as individuals, so they can grow spiritually and personally and professionally. And it's really about allowing those human tendencies of growth toward meaning making and creativity and integrity and collaboration and authenticity and all of these things that are some of what we call the higher values actually to be nurtured within the workplace itself.
So Audrey, how do you see your businesses fitting in with what Mara has just described?
Organically, I gravitated towards that. I didn't even know it was called conscious business.
Oh,
it was
really?
about basically, I as an individual was on my own soul journey trying to be of integrity, authenticity, and I wanted my business to reflect that. And then I just attracted team members who had the same value system. And then eventually we just collaborated and co-created, and we now have, this wonderful team environment of authenticity, just alignment in goals, shared values, and it kind of takes away the need to kind of micromanage because we're all thinking alike, and it just organically happens. The right actions get taken.
So it's a really different structure than what we're used to seeing.
Yes.
How is it different than a faith-based business? A typical kind of Christian-owned or, more religious?
Well, on my end, I think I respect any faith. It's basically their ability to view something greater than themselves. And in my business, we allow for any faith. The underlying principles is just the ability to, collaborate together, to respect each other, to have a non-dualistic way of thinking, right and wrong. And that's why the faiths don't really play into my business, because if I judged faiths, it would be dualistic. So basically, I think it's just the underlying principles you see across different faiths that actually make them what they are in terms of unifying people.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The research actually shows that a religious-based company can be divisive, especially if not all of the individuals within the company practice that religion. And actually, since they're your employers, it creates a power structure where they may feel either excluded or coerced into participating in some of the activities that are religion-based, as opposed to what many of the religions agree on a lot of the higher values, instead of focusing on the values that could be secular or spiritual or can work with any religion. That way it's not excluding others while including only a small subset.
Right. I mean, I have a global company, over 200 employees, and we have different faiths across the board. So.
Oh yeah, you have a company all the way in China. You've got a
So basically, if we had a faith-based business, I would probably cut out half of my workforce. So, it just doesn't work that way.
Thank you. That's interesting. Mara, I know you've done a lot of research on sort of the span and the rise of this phenomenon of what we call spirituality in the workplace. How do you account for this shift?
Well, I think that there are many strands that are moving into this dynamic of what I think we're seeing as a huge paradigm shift overall. Part of it is that individuals are really growing and awakening and trying to become more inclusive of all faiths and ways of being and holding these higher values. I think the other part, though, is that we're finding that the old ways aren't working, that a lot of the focus on war, power, control, profit, were actually destroying us rather than holding us up. And what businesses are now beginning to really understand is that if you invest in the people that are working with you and for you, if you look at issues of ecological, social sustainability and the community and the investment there, that it actually creates a more sustainable business model overall, and that the profits increase. So,
really?
Yes,
okay.
really. So what we're seeing is that doing it the right way actually pays off.
Okay.
Or the
so
right
so the
way.
right way
Yes.
being the focus on the individual
Right.
as one
Yes,
concept.
yes.
So Audrey, you've had a fair amount of experience with this sort of the what we might call the hierarchical model, the traditional, dog eat dog
Yes.
model, and how do you? Now you're creating a whole new model. So how do you relate to what Mara is saying?
Sure. I started my career as a management consultant in one of the biggest consulting firms in the globe.
Wow.
And I had to learn how to do it the old way, the patriarchal way. It was weird. I would take orders in that model, but I actually always ended up creating my own collaborative subculture, and that's actually why I exceeded expectations every time. I actually was banded in the top 5% globally the way I did it. So I would survive in the model of authoritarian, and but then I would translate that into a softer, gentler, collaborative environment where my team always felt that I had their back. And then I knew that was always my way of managing. And then when I started my own business, because I just really didn't want to keep doing that, taking orders in that model where you're always scared to make a mistake. There's no room for growth within the business. And because of that, I think in a lot of big companies, you see people scared to take a risk and scared to lead a company into change, which is required in a recession that we're having. So I always knew I wanted to be a risk taker because I think some of the greatest inventions and wonderful artworks actually happen when you take a risk. So I wanted to be an entrepreneur and start my own business and create an environment where people felt that they're safe and that they could make mistakes and learn.
That is beautiful. I love that. So speaking of your businesses, can you tell us a little bit more about your business?
Sure.
We have some beautiful things here to look at.
So you mentioned I own an international portfolio of businesses that manufacture and sell fashion and luxury goods to the mass market. So basically we make most of the alternative metals jewelry you see in the marketplace, stainless steel, titanium, and tungsten. We create that kind of jewelry for different brands. So if you go to any store in America, we pretty much make a lot of that.
Wow,
most
really?
of it, I would
kind
say.
Of cornered the market there for the most part.
Yes.
Wow.
And the reason why I think we were successful is because we provided a service in terms of we worked with them, we were collaborative with them, and we helped them navigate the recession. We were easy to work with, and we always are proactive in meeting their needs. And I think that's a lot about the whole lack of authoritarian model that we have, whereas a lot of our customers have that model. So it was interesting that they've all gravitated towards us.
So they like it.
Yes.
They're
Yes.
responding, which
Yes.
helps your business to
Yes.
grow and to be profitable, as you said.
Exactly, because we have a lot of
Interesting.
factories who are in the old model, and we're exceeding their.
So you're practicing the same thing outside the companies you are inside?
Yes.
In terms of how you do business
Yes.
with your customers?
Yes, and then I have my own brands, C-Note and Visati. And Visati is what we have here, basically jewelry that was inspired by my own personal journey spiritually. So it has sacred geometric shapes incorporated in the designs.
Wow.
And my team and I collaborate a lot together. We kind of meditate sometimes. I meditate a lot, and then we just kind of create concepts that inspire us.
Well, they're very inspiring to me. I think they're spectacular.
Thank you.
Really, really gorgeous. I love them. Audrey, I'd like to hear from you. You were identified in a conversation we had previously. We were able to kind of focus in on 10 primary practices that you do in your business.
Yes.
That you feel like that helps to define it as a spiritual workplace.
Yes.
So could you tell us about those 10 again?
I can.
I know she's got them written down.
Because
Great.
I actually just do this without having a label, so I had to write the labels down so I could
Yeah.
remember them. So the 10 practices of my conscious business.
Okay.
The first one is meditation. I meditate every day in the morning, and I try to at night. Sometimes I lax there, but it helps me get centered, and it helps me focus on the higher purpose of my business. Because in the day-to-day you can always get caught up in the drama of things and the reactivity of things. So I just make sure that if I'm clear in the morning, then I could face the world and be more grounded and centered, and I'm a better leader and a better service provider. The second one is setting intentions. It's important to really be clear in your intentions, not just the actions, but the reason behind what you're doing, because that's actually what people feel. they know if you're being disingenuous. So it's being clear and truthful in your intentions, and that actually helps forge your business ahead. And the team that you lead feels that, and they will follow you if they believe that you're truly of integrity. Now, the third one is use of intuition in planning and making decisions. I grew up in management consulting, and I was all about spreadsheets and strategic planning and
Data.
Yes.
Yes.
And I found through my experience that the best decisions have been made here in my gut, using my intuition. And of course, I would neurotically create Excel spreadsheets to double check, and then I just found that no, I don't need that anymore. So actually I'm more nimble and dynamic, and I actually perform faster, quicker, because I know I trust my intuition.
You've developed that trust.
Yeah, once you
Develop
develop
that
the trust, I think it's clearer. Your intuition gets a little clearer. Because there's a lot of noise about insecurity and decisions and what if it doesn't work, etc.
So yeah, so you've gotten better at getting the channel clear.
Yes.
To hear the message more clearly, kind of cut the static.
Yes.
I think that's something that you can practice and get better at, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And it is about trusting your experience, you know, that all of that experience that you have is already there, and you can bring what's needed to bear in the decision-making process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. The fourth one is the use of positive, intentional language. You know, Maya Angelou had always said, be careful of the words you use, and I believe in that. You really, it has energy, you know, and it seeps into everything around you, and it really infuses in my product. So we always try to be really positive with each other, and that I think that really does show in everything we create. The deliverables we create in the office in terms of administration, also emails that we send to each other and our customers. The fifth one is co-creation, and we talked about that. It's basically we as a team create together. I'm not dictating anything. And actually because of that, my team has ideas that are way better than mine, and we implement them and we become better. The sixth one is, again, authenticity. It's being very authentic, whether you're scared of people reacting to your ideas. I guess that's why people aren't authentic, and I think that's a lot of times why big corporations have issues, because people just hold back. I would prefer to hear your true ideas and opinion, because there will be something that would be useful in there.
And that comes back to the safety.
It really does.
That your job as a CEO is really to create a safe environment for people to be authentic.
Yes. It's
And
really
then you get the value contributions.
Exactly. Accountability is really important. That's the seventh one. Taking ownership of what you do, what you've decided. Again, it kind of ties together as authenticity and accountability, taking responsibility for your actions. And even if you make a mistake, I want to know, you know, that you took accountability for it. The eighth one is non-dualistic thinking. I mentioned that. There is no right or wrong. There's no failure or success. There's no binary way of looking at the world. It's basically, it's all good. You know, we learn from every moment that's a mistake. You sometimes walk a path and you step in something that's not so pleasant. You just wash it off. And the nine,
happens.
right?
Yes, it does.
And the nine one is staying out of the drama triangle, the hero, victim, persecutor dance that people do.
Can you just slow down on that one just
Sure.
a little and explain what you mean by that? As I know what you mean, but not everyone.
I appreciate that. So imagine a triangle, and there are three angles of vertices in it. One has the word hero in it, another one has the word victim, and another one has the word persecutor. And imagine in any dynamic you're in, whether it be a family or your workplace, and you'll see people trying to rescue someone, or someone playing a victim. Oh, I didn't do it. You know, oh, that person's mean to me. And the persecutor, that person's wrong. And you'll see that a lot, and it's basically a way to just not have accountability. And I could now sense it because I've had a lot of experience, you know, seeing that pattern. And it's really important to just kind of check it. As long as you disengage from that, it's easy to stop that dance from perpetuating within the organization.
Do you talk about that with your clients as a transpersonal psychologist?
Oh, certainly. You know, I was actually just talking about that earlier today about, you know, our propensity to, you know, make the problem out here instead of really looking at where it is. But also in the software industry, we have a saying that says, make the plan the bad guy. Right? So instead of the other people in the room, because you're a team, you really are working on something together. So if something's not going right, it's either because usually something's gone wrong with the process or the plan or the communications or something like that, and it's not about the people themselves being...
So this seems like this comes back to the safety thing that you were talking about too. so that if someone does make a mistake, it's acknowledged,
Yes.
but not with a finger pointed at that person and a blame. It's not a blame game, which then triggers the triangle
Yes.
that you're talking about. That's interesting. So to keep it objective.
Yes, always objective. And
Focused
I
on the
think to go
data.
back to meditation, I think that's why it's really important to do that, because it's easy to get into this drama triangle if you're not centered and you're tired, you know, reactive, angry. If you're meditating every day, I think you're calmer and you can deal with this a lot easier, and you'll be able to be objective, take a step back.
Right, right. And also one of the key outcomes of medication. Or meditation.
Is that one of your 10? We didn't think we got to that one yet.
11.
Is a great deal of self-awareness that comes with that. That's often an outcome of that practice. And so self-awareness is incredibly important in an environment where you're trying to engender that, allowing people to be human. I mean, in the old ways, it was just like you made a mistake, you could lose your job, right? You could be, and so there was a lot invested in making sure that you looked good and that, you know, that you perhaps didn't take responsibility for certain things.
All right, number 10, law of attraction. What you put out, you get back. Your thoughts, you attract. The things you do, you attract back. So basically understanding that every act you do in the business, you actually will attract. So it makes it really easy to make decisions aligned with the highest intention. When you understand that, you'll get it back. You know, so we're not very honest. We always are trying to be very generous in our community, and somehow it comes back.
So do these sound familiar to you with all the research you've done on that these practices?
They sound very familiar. Some of them are, you know, like the triangle that you use, are specific methods or ways of speaking, but the underlying values that are being engendered in the workplace are very much what we're seeing. Some of the studies have even talked about markers within an organization. So like, what are the effects in an organization if these things are being practiced? And a lot of what we're hearing is about what Audrey is talking about. So you see more creativity, you see more collaboration, you see output that is, you know, of a higher caliber and quality, because, you know, people are working really together on it. You begin to see much more community involvement, ideas around sustainability. So I'm sure that you are thinking about, you know, how can we sustain ourselves? You know, not just the business profit side, but how do we sustain ourselves, and when should we and when shouldn't we sustain ourselves?
Yeah, and I think when people feel cared for and like their needs are being met, then you're able to expand to a place where you're can start thinking about the community and how can we give back, and then extend that even out into the world. How can we as a business, you know, it's like that hierarchy of needs being met, and then you're, you know, can even think about the planet, the globe.
I think what we're seeing though now with this movement though is that it's not necessarily about wait until we're at a certain place of stability in order to do this, wait until we're at a certain profit margin to do this. It's starting on the very ground floor in the very smallest of ways, and that's how it builds, as you were saying, organically within an organization.
Just little acts of, you know, conservation. That's all you need.
It's a start.
Yes.
So both of you have a good amount of experience with something called the presence process. I'd like to hear from both of you about that. Mara, could you just explain for us what it is?
I can certainly try. It's a little bit ineffable, but I'll try to put some words to it. So it really is a process about present moment awareness. It's very similar to the work of Eckhart Tolle and others, but it is about a way of being within yourself and within your environment. And it really does change your perception. And along the way, there's a great deal of emotional and psychological healing that goes along with it within this particular process. But it really is about a transformation of your orientation within your world. And so you are responding from a different place. You're actually perceiving from a different place after having done this practice for some time.
So do I have to pay someone to help me to do this, or how do people find out about the presence process?
Well, if you want to do the presence process proper, Michael Brown is Michael Brown has written books, and he's very good at describing everything, and all of the exercises are right there in the book.
So Michael Brown, the presence process, you can just buy the book and go through the process. So I believe you've done that, right?
I have done the process. What I loved about it is after years of studying about present moment awareness, Michael Brown provided a process that you could apply in your life every day, that you can actually structure your life around, carve out time to do it. So there's something about breathing every day that you do, and it gets you in your body and present. And what I loved about it was that it helps you take ownership of what you're attracting in your life. So according to Michael Brown, a lot of the inner child wounds you get, or messages you get about how the world is entrained in you from like the womb to age 7. And after that, everything you're experiencing is basically just the same kind of pattern, just in different forms, different messengers. So what you notice then is, instead of reacting to the world constantly, you're saying to yourself, okay, what childhood wound did that trigger? Let me go back and breathe into that and heal it, integrate it in my being, so that I'm no longer reacting or responding and creating, as he calls, karma with other people. Instead of react, respond within.
So you're doing this in your own personal life.
Yes.
How does this play out in the workplace?
Well, with my team, they've actually they're signing up to do the presence process, actually. So we're
So when you say
got-
signing up, you're going to have a workshop? Or
Yeah,
something,
well,
or?
there's a book that you can buy, but there are wonderful people like Mara and some other people that I know who actually are offering
help.
workshops. They can help you kind
Okay.
of get through the dense material in the book,
Okay.
kind of a workshop. But in the meantime, I always include it in my terminology. So, for example, let's say I have a team member who has to make a decision that is stressful for her or him. Instead of responding in that excited state, take a step back, say, I need some time, go into a room, breathe, get clarity.
You coach them.
Oh, I do.
And how to do
I
this.
do.
I
I do.
That's interesting.
I always say there's nothing that's that urgent that you should react so quickly if you're not clear. So always, always take a step back, take a moment, breathe into it, and get clarity. And usually they get an immediate hit on what they should do. And there's nothing that urgent. So we're not, there's nothing that urgent, because the ramifications of making a decision in an excited state actually is a lot more expensive than the time it took to take a moment and breathe.
And that reaction's probably coming from a 5-year-old.
Yes, exactly.
From an inner
Exactly.
5-year-old
Yes.
place.
Exactly. Exactly.
Huh. That's really interesting. I love to hear this, how you're applying this in the workplace. How explicit are your practices with your employees, Audrey? Do you share these 10 things with them when they get hired in? I mean, do you have them posted somewhere around the office?
Obviously, no, because I had to write this out with you.
Okay.
It's just part of who I am, and then it's just how I coach them is individualized per person. I don't ever enforce my beliefs on people.
Right.
But ultimately, the goals are being centered. That's a good thing. Breathing is a good thing.
Yeah.
These are things I teach, but I never talk about the spirituality.
Behind it,
In
okay.
time, though, as I get to know the employees, then I can be a little more sharing on some of that. But what's interesting is I've attracted employees that are all aboard this, so,
So,
I'm
have
able
you-
to be authentic.
Have you seen your employees, have you ever witnessed your employees actually now coaching each other in this?
Yes, because they're always working together. My team's always working together.
So they're learning and then
Yes.
helping to teach
Yes.
the others that they work with.
Yes.
Okay, that is really
Well, it's a
interesting.
culture in a way.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
You're creating a
Yeah.
culture.
Sure.
How many employees do you have?
Well,
Because
200 globally. So,
Okay.
and then in Ann Arbor 10, and then I have a lot of salespeople. I don't really do the presence process with those people. It's a different model, but
Okay.
with the core,
Your core group.
the core group, and then in
Uh-huh.
Asia too, because I work with my team in Asia. So, and Asia is interesting because there's a lot of Buddhist kind of tendencies there, so they already have it.
Yeah.
So it's a little easier.
A little easier fit.
Yeah.
So what would you say, both of you, what are the benefits you've received from practicing these principles in your lives personally?
That's a big one. You want to go first?
Yeah, well, I will say that I've attracted a lot more ease in my life because of my diligence in following the presence process and clearing my inner child wounds. I don't react as much. I have less messengers in my life to remind me of my inner child wounds. I've attracted a lot of abundance because of it, because you have a lot of programming about how you deal with money and things like that are entrained early on. One of my beliefs before was I had to work really hard to attract abundance, but I cleared that and now I have flow. In general, my relationships are easier, more love in my life, all that good stuff.
So it's working for you.
It's working.
It's working for you.
It's working.
Working the mojo.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. I think for me, it's a little hard to tease out specifically presence process and how that has, because it's actually become integrated with other processes and just kind of a basic way of being in the world. But what I can say is that it's catalyzed a tremendous amount of spiritual and personal growth for me. And I do have a lot more space, right? Yes? I can breathe much easier. And I think can approach myself with a whole lot more curiosity and a sense of humor than I could before. And when you approach it in that way, it becomes joyful work instead of like, oh, now I have to go revisit my childhood, right? It's not really about that.
Yeah, because that sounds kind of painful to have to do that, yeah.
You don't take yourself as seriously,
Right.
I think.
Yeah, I think that's...
So everything gets lighter, it
Everything's
sounds like.
lighter.
Everything gets like, well, that gives you also then the room for others
To help
to be
others, yeah,
human,
right.
as well. So if you can allow yourself to be more human and give yourself that space, then you're much more apt to be able to give others that space as well.
That's a real big plus.
Yeah, I think compassion is one thing that has really been blossoming more for me.
I agree. And I think that helps me be a better leader because I do foster an environment of compassion, and that's the whole trust thing. They feel safe because we're compassionate. Yeah.
So what advice would you give an employee and or a small business owner who's hearing this and says, oh, I want out of the old stressful model. I love what I'm hearing. This sounds great. What's the first step? How do I get started?
Okay, well, as an employee, as I said, I created that in my world. You know, I didn't quit, but I created an environment of that for me and my team, my direct impact.
So you just started with yourself.
Yeah, you always start with yourself. And then,
Yes.
yeah.
I totally agree with that. That's where you have to start. You have to start with yourself. And another thing that I would say too is that a great deal of stress in the workplace is because we are not in our integrity and we are not in our authenticity, right? We are being something and someone else in order to please others or to do our job or something like that. And so for me, the first place is start with yourself and see where your values are not in alignment with the values of the business or the organization, and then go from there.
Go from
right?
there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Audrey and Mara. It has been a real pleasure and an honor to have you here. Very informative. And thank you, Ann Arbor, for joining us. Remember to tune in the second and fourth Tuesday of each month at 10:30 p.m. or look for rebroadcasts of Jeannie on the Beat at various times throughout the week. Ciao, Ann Arbor.